In 1998, a scientist named Vic Tandy was working late in a quiet laboratory. The building was silent. The only sound was the hum of computers. Suddenly, Vic felt a cold shiver run down his spine. It wasn't just cold. It was a crushing, overwhelming sense of dread. He felt like he was being watched by something unseen. Then, in his peripheral vision, a gray figure slowly emerged from the darkness. It stood there, silent, shadowy, a classic ghost. Vic froze. His heart beat violently against his chest. But when he slowly turned his head to face the figure directly, the room was completely empty. The ghost had vanished. Most people would have fled the building, convinced it was haunted. But Vic Tandy was not a believer in the paranormal. He was an engineer. He knew that the human brain does not just hallucinate ghosts for no reason. He was determined to find the physical cause of his terror. The answer arrived the very next day, in the form of a sword. Vic was a competitive fencer. He brought his foil blade to the lab to clean it. He clamped the metal blade tightly into a heavy workbench vise. And then, he noticed something impossible. The metal blade was vibrating. It was humming and moving on its own. No one was touching it. The air in the room felt still. Vic realized the blade was reacting to a silent wave of energy flowing through the lab. Using a microphone and measuring equipment, he tracked the frequency. The air in the room was vibrating at exactly 18.9 Hertz. This is a frequency known as infrasound, sound that is too low for human ears to hear. He traced the source to a newly installed extractor fan in the corner of the lab. The motor was faulty. It was shaking the air, producing a silent wave of pressure. The moment Vic turned off the fan, the sword stopped vibrating. But more importantly, the heavy sense of dread completely vanished from the room. Vic Tandy had just discovered the physical mechanism behind the haunted room. But how could a silent sound wave make him see a ghost? The explanation is a fascinating quirk of human anatomy. Every object has a resonant frequency, the frequency at which it naturally vibrates. If you push a swing at the right moment, it goes higher. If you hit a target with the right frequency, it shakes. And it turns out, the resonant frequency of the human eyeball is approximately 18 Hertz. To be precise, 18.9 Hertz. When Vic stood in the lab, the silent sound wave was physically shaking his eyes. The vibration was so tiny, he couldn't feel it directly. But it was enough to distort his vision, especially in the corners of his eyes. Our peripheral vision is highly sensitive to movement, but very poor at detail. The shaking eyes registered the gray laboratory walls as a moving, shadowy figure. But when he turned to look directly, his sharp central vision corrected the error. The ghost didn't run away. It dissolved because his eyes stopped shaking. This explained the visual hallucination. But what about the cold sweat? What about the crushing fear? Why does a silent frequency make us feel like we are about to die? To understand this, we have to look at our evolutionary history. In nature, infrasound is not produced by faulty fans. It is produced by earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and avalanches. These massive natural disasters release huge amounts of energy below 20 Hertz. You cannot hear the earthquake coming, but your body can feel the air pressure change. For millions of years, the animals that survived were the ones that ran when they felt infrasound. It was an early warning system built into our biology, an automatic panic button that bypasses the conscious brain. When infrasound hits your body, your amygdala, the fear center of the brain, goes into overdrive. It floods your system with adrenaline, preparing you to run from a predator you cannot see. But there is another source of infrasound in the wild, and it is active. Large predators, specifically tigers, use infrasound as a weapon. When a tiger roars, it produces a sound at the very bottom of our hearing range, around 18 Hertz. This roar can travel for miles through dense jungle. But it doesn't just warn other animals. It physically paralyzes them. The prey feels the vibration, the amygdala fires, and the animal freezes in sheer terror. By the time the prey realizes what is happening, the tiger has already struck. So when Vic Tandy stood in that lab, his modern brain was interpreting the fan hum as a tiger in the room. His body did exactly what it was programmed to do. It prepared him to fight for his life against an invisible predator. And since he couldn't see the threat, his mind created one: a ghost. Tandy published his findings in a scientific paper titled "The Ghost in the Machine." It became a sensation. But it also caught the attention of the military. If a silent sound wave could make people feel terror, could it be used as a weapon? During the Cold War, both the US and Soviet militaries experimented with infrasound weapons. They built giant acoustic generators designed to emit waves around 7 Hertz. At this frequency, infrasound doesn't just cause fear. It physically shakes internal organs. It can cause extreme nausea, dizziness, and total loss of bowel control. The weapons were mostly abandoned because they were too difficult to direct. Acoustic waves bend around obstacles, affecting the soldiers firing them as much as the enemy. But while the military gave up, another industry embraced the ghost frequency. Hollywood film directors realized they could use infrasound to manipulate your emotions. In the 2002 French thriller film Irreversible, the director deliberately used a 28 Hertz frequency. It was played during the first 30 minutes of the movie. People in the theaters reported feeling physically sick, anxious, and wanting to leave. They thought the movie was just psychologically intense. In reality, they were being physically poisoned by sound. This is a common trick in modern horror movies. The deep, rumbling bass you feel in your chest is often laced with infrasound. Your conscious mind is watching a scary scene. But your evolutionary biology is reacting to an earthquake. The combination creates a perfect illusion of fear. But you don't need to go to the cinema to experience this. Modern cities are giant infrasound generators. Wind turbines, highway traffic, subway tunnels, and ventilation systems. They all shake the air at frequencies below 20 Hertz. We live in a constant, silent ocean of low-frequency vibration. Your brain is constantly trying to process these silent warning signals. It explains why urban living is linked to higher rates of chronic anxiety and sleep disorders. You think you are stressed about your job or your finances. But part of your fear is just your biology reacting to the vibrating air around you. The next time you walk into a room and feel an unexplained chill, or a sudden, crushing sense of dread, do not look for ghosts in the dark. Look for the ventilation shaft, the humming refrigerator, or the distant highway. The ghost in the room is not a dead spirit. It is just your body remembering the tigers of the past.